All right, let's just get right into it. We're tackling the question that's buzzing around everywhere in finance. Where in the world is the price of Bitcoin actually going? Is this whole thing a clear roadmap to a new kind of wealth? Or is it just, a mirage in the desert? We're going to dig in and find out.
So, Bitcoin, what's next? I mean, that's the billion-dollar question, right? Or hey, maybe even the trillion-dollar question at this point. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we need to get a lay of the land. What's the market look like right now? Then we'll get to the fun part, what the experts are predicting for the near future and, way, way down the road. But then we got to pull back and get a reality check on all the risks involved. And finally, we'll wrap it all up and figure out what this actually means.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even think about looking into the future, we have to get a handle on where we are today. So let's set the stage. So right now, as we're talking, Bitcoin's hanging out around the $118,000 mark. But you know what? That exact number isn't really the point. It changes by the minute. What is important is its behavior. It's been on this classic wild roller coaster ride, It hits these highs, then pulls back to test what the pros call support levels. It's that constant kind of stomach-churning volatility, and honestly, that's just the name of the game with Bitcoin. So what's behind all these crazy price swings? Well, it's definitely not random. The market is basically reacting to these huge economic forces. Think about it. Every time new inflation data comes out in the US, or there's even a hint that the Fed might cut interest rates, everybody just holds their breath. And on top of that, you've got this massive wave of cash pouring into the new Bitcoin ETFs, and now there's even serious talk about putting it into retirement accounts. It's this really powerful mix of big picture economics and a whole lot of market excitement. Okay, now for the part you've probably been waiting for, the main event, the predictions. And you should really think of these like a weather forecast, right? The forecast for tomorrow is pretty solid, but the forecast for next month, a little fuzzy. And the forecast for a year from now, well, that's where things get really interesting. Let's start close to home. Where could Bitcoin be by the end of 2025? This is where analysts are trying to mix the hard numbers with, the general vibe of the market to see what's just around the corner. So looking at 2025, pretty much everyone is bullish. They think the price is going up. But bullish can mean a lot of different things. You have a panel of experts from Finder who are super optimistic, throwing out a number like $250,000. They're factoring in human emotion, hype, all that stuff. Then you look at the other end, where you have a machine learning model from CoinFomania. It's just crunching the historical numbers, no motion, and it comes up with a more cautious prediction, something closer to 143,000. So the big takeaway here isn't any single number, it's the range. Everyone seems to agree the direction is up, but nobody can agree on just how steep that climb is going to be. But hey, if you think those numbers are a little wild, just you wait. When we start looking way out, like towards 2040, we basically leave the world of forecasting behind and we just cannonball right into the deep end of pure, unadulterated speculation. It gets pretty crazy. So check this out. This timeline lays out a potential path to numbers that are, well, they're just astronomical. By 2026, some are saying 220,000. Fast forward to 2030, and that could more than double to $500,000 for one Bitcoin. But the one that really makes you stop and stare is 2035. That's when some of these models predict a single Bitcoin could be worth over $1 million. I mean, this is the bull case on steroids. This is the absolute extreme. Okay, deep breaths. $1 million Bitcoin. It sounds amazing, right? But before we all get carried away planning our retirements, we have to slam on the brakes and bring this whole thing back down to earth. Because with every single one of those exciting predictions comes a whole list of risks, and we absolutely have to talk about them. So what could derail this whole $1 million train? Well, first off, that crazy volatility we talked about, yeah, that's not going anywhere. Second, all those big economic factors, they cut both ways. If inflation gets out of control or the Fed starts hiking rates again, the party could be over real fast. Then there are the regulators. They're always watching, and one new law could change everything overnight. And finally, a lot of the optimism is based on these historical patterns, like the price surges that happen after a halving event. But here's the thing about history. It's a great guide, but it is never a guarantee. All right, we've looked at the market today, we've seen the absolutely wild predictions, and we've talked about the very real risks. So, what are you supposed to do with all this? Let's boil it all down to the key takeaway. And this really is the question you have to ask yourself, isn't it? How much should you take this to heart? When you're hearing these numbers that range from, nice all the way up to life-changing, how much of it is real? Look,
The best way to think about this is to use these predictions as a framework for what could happen, not as a guarantee of what will happen. It's not the gospel truth. At the end of the day, the most important number in all of this isn't some analyst's prediction for 2035. It's your own comfort level with risk. That's it. A balanced view is everything here.
Which brings us right back to where we started. The ultimate question. Are these predictions we've been looking at a real roadmap, something that's actually pointing to the future of money? Or are they just a shimmering mirage in the desert, something that looks amazing from a distance but might not be real at all? For now, that's a question everyone kind of has to answer for themselves.